Hey, this is Sheila Ryan with Ancient Current Roots in Culture. Just giving a plug for my brethren Nija, the organizer down in Boston. He's got a new EP dropping soon. Keep your eye out, 2023.
But they put it in a Rasta life. All we have is genuine faith that leads us to Zion gate. I love righteousness, where Selassie rests his head. Humble children bawling out, oh what a battery. You want to Sheila, big up yourself, King Selassie, bless it from here to your toe. Sheila Ryan, big up yourself, King Selassie, bless it. We have the Asian current, we have the roots and culture. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Nija, the organizer, Sheila Ryan, forward.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Ancient Current Roots and Culture. I have today a special guest, Taj Weekes. He is a poetic and scholarly reggae artist, also founder of children's charity They Often Cry, or TOCO. And as I've heard him say many times, the vibes are high and the message is mighty. Taj Weekes, welcome to Ancient Current.
No, man, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Give thanks. Well, I first heard your music when I was in northern Minnesota, and my mother was a part of a radio station, KBXE and KAXE, and I was a volunteer there with a reggae show. Excuse me. And she passed along a CD of yours to me maybe 12 years ago or so. And in that position in northern Minnesota, that's to receive your CD and get to share it on the radio was just such a blessing. And since then, I've been a listener of your music. And so I'm glad to have you here today. And so I do feel like the geographic history of people's upbringings create a story. So where people come from, where they've grown up, create a story of their history. So can you start out telling us, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Saint Lucia. I was born in Saint Lucia.
Okay.
It's a little island in the Caribbean between Martinique and St. Vincent, 238 square miles with a population of about 170,000 people.
Okay. Many of your lyrics are in rhymes or almost parables, like let your voice be as loud as your silence, or funny how the rain comes to wash away what you save for a rainy day. Where do you come up with your lyrics?
Well, I would think it's a mix of all, because where you sit is where you stand, you know what I mean? So it kind of just happened. I don't think I can actually tell you how they come about, because if I knew, I would write better songs. So they come from wherever they come from. I really truly believe these songs are already written. It's the level of inspiration and humility you bring to the art form. Because I've said it before that I didn't invent the words. The words are floating someplace, and if you reach hard enough, you can pick them out, So I don't know if I have an answer for that. Songs come at what time, whenever they come, for whatever reason, and I'm always happy to accept them.
That's a powerful answer right there. Thank you. Like just being an open conduit for the message. So that's beautiful. Have you always had music and performing as your number one thing, or in younger years, did you go down a road of a different career?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was a little boy, what we did in my household is we would line up in the living room and sing to my parents at nighttime. That was what we did every night. So during the day, you always kind of prepared a song that you wanted to sing at night. And then my father would get up at the end of the night and sing to us. And it kind of just grew from that. We sang in church, we sang in school, and the music we sang was not reggae. We sang whatever came across on the radio.
Okay.
But when the Rastafarian movement came through, it changed my outlook on life because my brothers became Rastas. And I grew up in the height of the movement where, at times the police would shoot the Rastas on sight just because they didn't agree with their point of view, So, it was that kind of time and that kind of upheaval, that spirit of what I grew up into. I guess that made me who I am, But I never really had any, as a child, all I wanted to do was play, and I didn't have any really set ideas of what I wanted to be. I left Saint Lucia, I went to school in Canada.
Okay.
And it kind of just happened. If I may tell you that when I was in Canada, I used to hang out with some musicians, but I always sang as a child, right? So we always did the stage shows and everything. And I would hang out with musicians in Canada, and they wrote some songs, and I was thinking to myself, I think I can write as good as that. So I started really focusing on songwriting, and it just kind of led to where it is right now. I hope I didn't digress and run off with your question.
No. I'm really grateful for anything you have to share. Thank you. I'm wondering about your childhood. You were saying your brothers were Rastas. So you were a youth at this time?
Yeah. Yeah. I was, when the Rastafarian movement started to really taking its foothold in the Caribbean, I was fairly young. I was about 11 years old. So,
okay.
And I saw the anger that was directed towards the Rastas, just because they had a different point of view. But I found so much, there was so much community at the time when I was growing up. My brother MPLA taught me an I philosophy, that I, the physical and I, the spiritual, is one. And I didn't need to go to church to seek salvation, because salvation was within, not without.
Yes.
And these were the kinds of things that taught me that what I was being taught originally was not the right way to go. So yeah, man, that's kind of what it was.
How did you find the strength to stand up against what you had been taught?
It didn't require much strength, because it was light, it was right, and it was a bright light, and I had to follow it, because I couldn't believe that you could find salvation within four walls. And I always ask my parents, why is it that way? Why do I have to speak to another man in between to get to God himself? Why did I have to, so it didn't really make sense to me. I once asked my mother, when she was telling me about Christmas, I said, I don't understand how you could follow a star. That star had to be really low for you to follow it, because stars are so high. When they were telling me the story of Christmas, I couldn't understand how you could follow a star. So there were little inconsistencies that I really didn't understand. And my brothers taught me a different way of thinking. So I went to what made sense, as opposed to what I was told.
That's powerful. I remember my upbringing. We went to church pretty regularly, but as my sisters and I got a little older, sometimes we wouldn't go. And my parents would say, go find a spot in the woods and just sit, just go sit in the forest, in the woods. And I remember thinking, that's a really great way to do it instead of going to church. This is wonderful. I get to go sit out and hear the frogs and watch the birds. And then another time, I remember when my dad stayed home from church, he brought me with him on this walk way back in the woods. And it was up on a ridge, and there was all these trees looking down over this river. And he said, this is my church. And that hit home so deeply, and it still stays with me, to be able to see that church and the spiritual realms are not within the walls, but you can connect within nature or within, yourself and your temple. So I hear you, and thank you for sharing. So you have a song, Bang Bang, and you say not missiles, but microbes are taking us down. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, the entire album, that album Pause, as the name suggests, is the time when I had to take a pause as a musician. I think everybody had to take a pause because there was no live music, nothing was happening. And it's a timepiece. The entire album captures that time of the mask season.
Ah,
And it was also the time of a brother called Donald Trump.
Mhm.
And the line there's the line that comes kind of before that says everything is weaponized, and that not missiles but microbes, that the virus was what was taking us down.
Oh,
It was a
so
war.
interesting.
It was a war in and of itself.
Mhm.
Either we all stand together or it won't be too long till bang bang.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh, thank you for that insight. Another powerful song or another powerful line of yours is something about marshal your convictions, thought can be bought. Is that what it is?
Yeah, marshal your convictions. Yeah, that's from Let Your Voice, right? Let your
Yeah.
voice be, yeah. Yeah,
So,
marshal your convictions, be clear in your thought.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
mean, I
share
think,
that a little bit more too?
yeah, I think as a collective, if we all stood up for our convictions, we would live in a different world.
Mm.
There's so many times because your silence makes you complicit.
Mhm.
If I don't say anything, that means I've said everything I've had to say.
Mm.
So I'm asking people to stop being what they are, social media revolutionaries and radio revolutionaries, but marshal your convictions and be clear in your thought, and let your voice be as loud as your silence.
Mhm. Such a powerful line, such a powerful song. Thank you. This song, Angry Language, you say, seek the space, I seek the spaces in my thought to unlearn what I've been taught. And now you've talked about this a little bit already in the interview, but were there certain things that you had to unlearn, or are there certain things that you see other people unlearning as they go through life?
That was a personal song for me. When I was leaving Saint Lucia, I was 16 years old.
Mm.
I was quite young. I was going to school in Canada. I was going to live with some relatives. And my mother said to me that remember who you are. Remember you're a spiritual being on a human quest,
Mm.
and that she said, everything that you needed, I have already taught you.
Mm.
And it's inside of you. So whenever you get sidetracked, seek the spaces in your thought. And I realized that I was truly learning an angry language because what I was becoming is what was not what I left as,
Mm.
and I had to tap myself to remember that, we're all incredible, loving and kind human beings. Is the
Mhm.
environment we find ourselves in that corrupts us.
Mhm.
She always used to tell me, be like a fish in the water. Even though it lives in salted water, if you take it out, it's not salty,
Mm.
you know? So, that's what I was seeking the spaces in my thought to just tap into who I was essentially, and that's kind of what it is.
Mm. That makes me just think of your overall vibration as an artist. When I listen to your music, a lot of times I I'm so grateful to hear what you're saying, but it's also really heavy and like so very deep and powerful. And the message is really clear about what is happening. I mean, of course, there's the parables and the things that I don't catch, or it's complex, but yet it's very clear on the violence, the negativity. How do you keep yourself positive through the deep, sad, heavy message that you're sharing? How do you stay with a high vibration?
Well, I think if I didn't have it, I couldn't write what I was writing.
Mm.
If I were pessimistic and, heavy-hearted, I couldn't see the light.
Mm.
But because I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that's the only reason why I can continue. Because I'm the eternal optimist. I believe people are like tankers. They turn slowly, but they will turn.
Nice.
Yeah, people are like tankers. They will turn, but you have to turn them gently.
Mm.
You know, to tell. I mean, I think my surroundings and the people I am around and my family is all the love I need. So I always stay positive. You know, and I have to be positive because I have children.
Mm.
And if it was all doom and gloom for me, then I might as well pack it up and leave.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we all get caught up with the way things are, then it won't get better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, man, I just some of the things about why I stay positive, I cannot even articulate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I am just grateful that I can do what I do, and I can share light whenever I can. But you know, there are dark days,
Mm-hmm.
like for everybody else. You know,
Yeah.
there are days when you think that everything you're doing is in vain and nobody's getting it, and this world is not becoming a better place. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, again, I have to seek the spaces in my thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah.
So with so much violence, why not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth?
Because we'll all be blind and toothless.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do you have any people or things, I guess more people or music that influence you or have influenced you over the years?
Well, I mean, I grew up listening to. I have to tell you this. When I was 14 years old, I got a chance to have my own radio show.
Sweet.
You know, on the national radio station in Saint Lucia. So I would get there really early in the day, and I would sit through all the albums and pull out the jackets and read all the lyrics. And I felt that I was more attracted to the lyric than the music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what people said to me mattered, you know? So I think I was always attracted to the people who said the right things across all genres, you know? There's a brother called Black Stallion, a Calypsonian, and a brother called Mighty Shadow, and a brother called the Mighty Sparrow. These brothers said some heavy things in their words, you know? And as I was attracted to how that made me feel and how that made me think, and then when you got to reggae, you had Bob and you had Third World and, you know, you had Jimmy Cliff and, you know, Ajuman Levi and people said the right things, you know, and I read lyrics when I started getting older by brothers like Terrence Trent D'Arby after the soulful albums, you know, people who said things that mattered. So it was not one particular person or one particular genre, you know, and, you know, the books that I read, there were lots of people who said, you know, lots of things that I loved. You know, there are poets like Derek Walcott, who's a Nobel laureate poet from Saint Lucia. There's Kendall Hippolyte, you know, there's Adrian Auger. There are lots of people who I read and listen to, you know. So it's not, the inspiration is not just musicians, just people who say the right things, you know, Arundhati Roy, you know, Chris Hedges, all these people say the right things. So yeah.
Neat. Thank you. I love that a lot of the posts I see on social media is you and your wife, or you posting, highlighting her. And I just find that so admirable and beautiful. And I'm grateful because when I think there's so many artists that are out there just in their solo selves. And I always think about like, where's the family? You know, where's the lady? Where's the youth? And so when I see artists like yourself that are like, you know, with their partner and this balance and this beautiful shining of each other, I really am appreciated and grateful. And, you know, I'm curious about her because it seems like she has something, I don't know if it's she's a designer or what it is, but I've seen some things with, she's got some projects. And what can you tell me a little bit about her? Share about her. She seems wonderful.
Yeah, you know, she's an incredible human being. I am thankful. I always say when I count my blessings, I count her twice. You know, she lifts me up when I'm down. You know, she makes me happy when I'm sad.
Wonderful.
He likes the way when it's dark and it's not cliches, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was growing up and I watched reggae, I thought, wow, what a sad world of ton of individual men all by themselves, you know. Nobody has a woman, you know. So I found that kind of strange, and nobody spoke about their women.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody moved solo,
Uh-huh.
you know. But I don't move solo because I cannot do it solo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always say that yes, I may be the one putting pen to paper and putting the songs down, but I always think it's we who write the songs. Because I think the energy in the room when she's there most of the times is what makes me write what it is that I write. You know, so it's a we, it's not an I, you know. And if anything, above all, it's an I and I.
Yes.
But you know, I'm really truly appreciative of this incredible woman who I've spent so much of my life with. She is a designer.
Okay.
She actually worked for Victoria's Secret for a very long time.
Okay.
She worked for Liz Claiborne. She worked for The Gap. She worked for all the big fashion houses.
Okay.
She's a mother of 3 incredible young men. God, she is a producer. You know, she comes in the studio sometimes and I'm doing something and I swear I'm right. And she goes, "You have it wrong, big man. Switch this one. play it this way instead," you know?
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, because on the upcoming album, there's a song that I was writing because the album that's coming up, it's a very introspective album. It's about me basically spending 365 days every day, almost every hour with the same person. You know? And I was writing a song about looking at my reflection. And I said a word in it. She said, "Did you really want to say lonely?" You know, and I realized, well, no, I don't really want to say lonely because I wasn't really truly lonely. You know, so she switches the words around sometimes, but she definitely is the balance, you know, and I truly love this woman because she is in more ways than one my better half. Yeah.
That's beautiful. One perfect divine balance. That's lovely to see. And so I just want to big you up and, you know, your strength and having her there by your side and not like hiding her. You know?
You know, it's funny, right? I was in Africa and I met a brother, a musician who showed up at a function. He was with his wife. I didn't know he had a wife. And I've known his brother for lots of years, you know. I was like, "Oh shit, your wife." Okay, yeah, I didn't know, you know, but yeah. But I don't know why it is that reggae tends to hide their women. You know, when we speak so much of unity and the Empress, you know, I would think we would show more of the Empresses so the world can see them. But we tend to move solo, and hopefully, you know, that can change.
Well, seeing ones like you standing out and sharing that unity publicly is very beautiful, and I hope that it will inspire others to continue to do the same. So yeah, give thanks. And speaking of your wife, is there anything in particular, like what has held you guys together over the years through thick and thin? Has there been something in particular?
I think I like my wife more than I love my wife.
Cool.
So, you know, I mean, I like that person.
Yeah.
So loving her comes easy.
Nice.
You know, I like her spontaneous nature. You know, the thing about it is I love her because I don't try to change her. You know, I may be more on time than she is, but if I try to change her, that's not who she is. I always wanted to be her. I always wanted to bring herself to whatever it is, you know? And that's what's wonderful about her. She's true to who she is, and she makes me more true to who I am. And I don't try to change her, and she doesn't try to change me. You know, I've accepted her for who she is, and she's accepted me. So I think that's all it is. I mean, I think the same thing I tell my children. You try the best as you can to do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. You know, I know, and if you love somebody, like them, whichever way you want to take it, it's not always going to be 50-50. Because there are times when it has to be 90-10. You know, and Yeah, there are times when it's going to be 70-30. But the idea is to aim for 50-50, you know? Because if I wake up in the morning and I have to wash the dishes, I'm not going to say, well, why didn't Angela wash the dishes? And if she gets up in the morning and she has to make breakfast, she's not going to say, why isn't Taj up to make breakfast, or why didn't he feed the dogs? We just do what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not looking at what the other person is doing, you know, because you know that the person you have is not going to take advantage of you. So you just do what you have to do, you know. And I don't know if that's the answer to it, but it's working for me. So
Sounds
I'll
good.
stick to it.
Uh-huh. Nice. As far as I understand, you also do works to enrich the lives of children in the Caribbean. Can you inform us about those works?
Yeah, in 2008, I mean, before that, we had always given. But in 2008, I wrote an album called The Idem. And there was a song on there called The Orphans Cry. And I was called by a lady who worked at the UN. She asked if I could shine my little spotlight on the Caribbean. Because usually when we think of the Caribbean, we don't usually think of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
We think of all-inclusive hotels and, you know, rum and coconut water on the beach and these kinds of things. You know? So I said yes. And she said, well, you know, we need to formalize it. And I said, well, she said she had heard the song, The Orphans Cry.
Mm-hmm.
So we played around with the title of The Orphans Cry, and we came up with The Orphan Cry Outreach, TOCO. And we formalized the organization. And from then on, everything we did, we focused on trying to help as much of the Caribbean as we could.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way to do it but to start with the children?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of started out with the children, you know. And TOCO has been in operations ever since. We do an annual holiday party where we bring bikes and scooters and skateboards because
Cool.
the Caribbean has a really high rate of diabetes. So we try to encourage the children to live a less sedentary lifestyle, you know, by getting them to move.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a football program, Soccer in America, where we bring, you know, footballs and uniforms. We have, through one of the organizations under our umbrella, Free Kick, give scholarships to children in the Caribbean to go to schools in the US.
Okay.
We do a dental program.
Oh, that's great.
We do a spay and neuter program because there are really just too many stray dogs.
Sure.
We do a domestic abuse program called the Clothesline Project, where we hang T-shirts that are written with slogans, whatever form of abuse you're going through, and we hang it in a public place, and we have counselors on the periphery to help people who need help.
Oh, wow.
We do things, I don't remember all of them, but I know Angela does something where she does pop-up shops. So she has all this fashionable clothes and she just shows up in a village and everybody's allowed to come take 2 pieces. As many people as possible.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Next month, we're going to Saint Lucia to do another dental program, and we're bringing 15 doctors from California.
Oh, wow.
To help the folks out, you know, because the lockdown has happened for a while and we want to help out as many people as we can. But these are some of the things we do. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's so nice to see someone like yourself in a position to be able to give in such a way, really doing that. I give thanks. Can you tell me about your band, Adwa, correct? And are you still playing with them? It seems like you were a long time ago. Has that band stayed together? Tell me a little bit about Adwa.
Yeah, we started off in the late 90s, playing the local scene in New York.
Okay.
Then we formalized and we put out the first album, Hope and Doubt, which is really funny. I was the only person hopeful, everybody else was doubtful. So, you know, people were like, you sure you want to do this? You just stick to your 9 to 5. But, you know, I said, no, man, we can do this. And we did the first album. We did 7 albums after that.
Wow.
And it's difficult at times, you know, because in the beginning you have the same vision.
Mm.
Everybody's just hungry. But you know what happens in everything is the analogy I'll use is as American football game or a rest of the world football game. The quarterback wants to become the running back, and
Okay.
it can't work. You know, when the goalkeeper wants to play forward, it cannot work. You know,
True.
we have to stick to our strengths.
Mhm.
You know, and when somebody thinks, well, you know, the guy who scored the goal is making too much noise for him, and the guy who scored the goal doesn't even see it that way. He sees himself as part of a collective.
Mhm.
But the goalkeeper saying, well, you know, why do I have to stand way in the back? Because it's your job to mind the goal,
Mhm.
you know? But when people start thinking they need to play different positions, things fall apart.
Sure. That's a
You
good
know?
analogy. Mhm.
So yeah, so that's kind of what really happened to the band.
Mm.
And during the pandemic or plandemic, whichever one you want to call it, um, I just kept on doing what I always do and write songs. And I called up some of the musicians who I've known, and we recorded Pause. And it was just so less stressful
Oh, good.
recording than doing it the other way,
Hmm.
you know? And I just decided, you know, that I'd had enough. You know,
Mhm.
I'd carried that level of stress with me for too long.
Mm.
You know, I had been the banker, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the lawyer, you know, you know, I had too many roles. You
Mm.
know, I was the brother who had to remember, oh, you forgot your line again. So there it is.
Mm.
You know, and it just became less stressful, you know, and
Mhm.
it was easier for me. It's not something that I had thought about, but I needed that time to reflect
Mhm.
and realize that it would be better moving forward
Mhm.
without the band.
That's great. It
Yeah.
seems like that time gave a lot of people new perspective, and we had that time to go within our thoughts more so than normal. And I think a lot of change happened over those few years of the isolation, even though it was difficult and a lot of things crumbled in some ways. I feel like there was a burning light that came out of it that was brought more clarity for people. So that's interesting to hear your story with that. Do you have any focused plans for your music in the near future?
Well, you know, I've written the next 3 albums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think we're going to release 2 albums this year.
Cool.
One is the album that I wrote basically when I stayed with Angela. I wrote Pause and that album together.
Okay.
And it's just only so much material you can put out at the same time. So we put out Pause. We're going to put that out. I don't have a name for it as yet. I'm still trying to figure out what it is I want to name it. But there's an album I went over to Canada. Some young folks in Canada had asked me to come help them write an album. And we had a marathon session, 10 songs in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And so that album is going to come out as well.
Hmm.
It's a wonderful album because, excuse me, I'm from Saint Lucia. The singer was an incredible singer. Is from Antigua. She sounds like a cross between Billie Holiday and Erykah Badu.
Oh.
The drummer was from Venezuela.
Hmm.
The keyboard player was from Guyana, keyboard and trumpet player.
Oh,
Guitar player is from India.
wow.
The brother who does the slight DJing and scratching is from the Ukraine.
Oh, cool. What
And the
a
engineer
eclectic
is,
mix.
yeah, the engineer is a Canadian brother.
Huh.
So I think we came up with something that's quite unique. It's reggae, but it's not really reggae because we weren't aiming for reggae.
Mhm.
So we got something that's fairly unique out of that. And I'm working on an album of Saint Lucia music.
Ah, neat.
Yeah, you see, Saint Lucia was fought over 14 times. 7 times the British one and 7 times the French one.
Oh, wow.
So we speak in English and a Creole. It's a
Mhm.
French Creole, you know? And the music that we have is the original music that we got from our colonizers and everybody else. It's something called a shak, banjo, and a violin.
Okay.
And we're going to add some other things to it. And we're going to sing the songs in both French and English.
Neat.
Yeah. So these are the projects we're working on. But yeah, I've written some other albums. I mean, because I tend to write quite a bit. There are times when I write, like when I'm really focused, I can write a song a day. So we've written quite a bit of songs, and we've written for people as well. But my issue is, some people think that what I write is too intellectual. And I don't agree with that, simply because I don't think the person who said that and the few people who say it speak for everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think everything's for everyone.
Absolutely.
Everybody's not going to dig everything all the same. I mean, there's some people who don't dig Shakespeare, the people who don't dig Langston Hughes.
It's true.
But it doesn't mean they're any less at what they do. And the greatest musicians I know are not famous. So yeah, man.
Well, I really appreciate the intellectual aspect of your music, and like I said at the beginning, it really, it's deep and it's heavy, and it really puts you in your own thoughts and in that mind space of like listening and learning, despite the challenges that you're speaking of. So I agree that not everybody likes the same things, and I'm grateful for what you're sharing with the world. And I just encourage all the listeners to check out Taj Weekes. Do you have some things you'd like to share with your website and social media places people can find you?
Yeah, I mean, it's my name, Taj, and Weekes is Weekes. There are 3 E's in Weekes. But I said this when I started playing music, it wasn't to become an actor or to become a model. So social media has kind of thrown a curve, because I get a little overwhelmed with how many pictures of yourself you can post every day. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
I struggle with that, and I really do struggle with it. But the people who walk around me say, "Oh, you got to post another picture of yourself." When I listen to, Dennis Brown, I only saw 3 pictures of him, but I still loved what he did.
True, for real.
Yeah, but I don't understand digging the music because you saw the person. I mean, if you like the music, you like the music, whether or not
you listen with your ears.
Yeah, but it's a strange world that we live in, and I just struggle with it. I struggle with trying to not have to put another picture of myself, or everywhere you go, you got to record what you're doing. And if we're digging the music, let's dig the music. Because like they say, the revolution will not be televised. So, let's listen to the music, and let's not so focus on, the color of the hat he had today, or the T-shirt, or the jewels he had, or how many cars he drives, or she drives, for that matter.
Right.
But what it is that you bring to the table as an artist. Because my job, for me, is to be as true to the art form as I can. And that's all I really care about.
Yeah, listen to the music and turn it up loud. Taj Weekes, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, man. The only thing we always share and we always say when imparting is, as always, love your brother as yourself, love your sister as yourself, and always let your vibes be high and let your message be forever mighty.
Absolutely. Yes, I give thanks, Taj Weekes. Really grateful for your time here. Encourage all the listeners again, check out his stuff, listen to his music, listen loud. And once again, give thanks, Taj Weekes. Blessed love and respect.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye.
All right, cool. Ciao, love.